Hey guys, welcome to TST Garage. I'm Bart, and today in this video, I'll be showing you how to install the TST Industries Brake Light Modulator on your bike. Now, a brake light modulator, sometimes called a strobe, sometimes called a brake light flasher, what it does is basically enables you to install some electronics on your bike so that when you press your brakes, the brake light flashes in some kind of pattern and alerts the drivers behind you that you will be stopping. Our particular brake light modulator comes pre-wired to a plug that interfaces with a sub-harness that we provide specific to your bike model that enables plug-and-play functionality with your bike. So that means that the installation is really fast and you can do it yourself. Now, the electronics inside, we do have the ability for you to program this unit to 3 different functions and then subsequently adjust the rate of the effect to your liking. Our first programmable mode is strobe alert. This mode will produce 9 flashes and then stay solid for the duration of the brake engagement. Second one is intermittent pulsar. Each cycle will flash 10 times and then pause, and then these cycles will repeat for the duration of the brake engagement. The last available option is pulsar, and this one just basically provides continuous flashing for the duration of the brake engagement. Now we'll show you how to install this. It's really simple. And then after the installation chunk, I will show you in detail how to get inside here, how to program the different modes, and how to alter the rate of those different modes. We did think about the safety of such devices during the design phase. So we decided to design this in a way that it will be a pass-through component. In case you experience a failure on board here, it will just pass through your normal brake function, which means you press your brake light lights up, there's just no effect. In case you do experience that failure, we do offer a warranty, so we have guys standing by in our support department that will take your call, email, Facebook message, whatever, and we'll get you replaced. And that's pretty much it. I'm really excited to show you guys just how easy this is to put on and configure. So let's get started. For this presentation, we scored ourselves a brand new 300L here. It is mostly stock. We have a fender eliminator and signals on it, but the components of concern to us are still in stock form. Whether you're using the OEM taillight or upgraded integrated taillight that we have for this bike, the installation method of the brake light modulator and the harness will be exactly the same. For this bike, we will be using the vehicle-specific plug-and-play harness, so no worries there. The installation is actually pretty simple. It requires a 6mm Allen key to undo and refasten these 4 fasteners here. And then we'll also be using a pair of cutters, and that's pretty much it. Let's dive right in. When I remove these bolts here, I do want to keep track of the washers that come out of each location. On the rear, we have the black washers that are a little bit shorter. They are shoulder washers and they are meant to be concentric inside all these components in that hole. So please make sure that you remember what goes where. All right, here we go. So you have the longer silver shoulder washer on the front location and the darker, shorter shoulder washer on the rear. Let's repeat the steps on the left side. Once the forward fastener comes out, we are then able to pry up on the seat and shake it a little bit and withdraw it this way, down and out towards the rear. And now we will have access under here. This panel needs to get pushed out. There is a friction fastener here going into a grommet that needs to be pried outboard. And then we just lift up on the tail. And there are still 2 little interference geometry pegs that go into windows here. You just need to spread them, pick it out, and now we're good to go. Now we have access to all the wiring. Let me disconnect my taillight. The taillight has a 3 conductor plug here. Press on the release mechanism, withdraw it, and that's pretty much it. before we get into the reassembly here with our new TST Industries components, I just briefly want to talk about what happens if you guys decide you want to go with an LED light bulb for the rear. The OEM system comes with a filament type incandescent light bulb in the taillight. Some guys are inclined to change that to LED bulbs. Typically, it's for the purpose of increasing the brightness of your taillight. Whatever the case may be, if you do replace that, this may work differently than the OEM system. Now, because this is a filament bulb, the action of brightening and decreasing the brightness is slower than on LEDs. But on some of these LED bulbs, I've noticed by working with them, they have some kind of a capacitive filter circuit inside that takes out the fluctuations of brightness due to different voltages at different RPMs in the bike. That may actually clash with what the actual circuitry is trying to do. The brake light modulator is attempting to brighten and decrease the brightness very rapidly on these bulbs, and if it has a filter system on the bulb itself, it'll counteract what we're trying to do. So if you do have an LED light bulb in your bike, make sure you keep that in mind. You may have to revert back to this type of bulb or go to a different LED bulb that doesn't have a filtering system. Anyway, like I mentioned just before, the filament bulb will have a slower action, so we may have to adjust this modulator with that in mind. We may get a slightly slower action than you would normally like, but that is just what is possible on this bike. I'll show you guys where I have this system adjusted to, and then you guys can go from there. All right, like I said, for this particular bike, we have a vehicle-specific harness. Very simple, 4-conductor plug goes into the brake light modulator, and then we just connect all of these components in series. There is really only one way to do this. Once connected, I like to make sure that everything is working properly still. Okay. So you guys can probably tell that it's not a very crisp on-off type of strobe effect. It's softer than that, but nevertheless, it is actually strobing. So this is the effect that you're after, and this is what our circuitry enables you to do. If you're okay with that, then please proceed. Otherwise, you may want to rethink what you've got going on. All right, let's go for physical installation. Now, I've neatened up the plugs inside this boot. We do still have these connectors out here. Don't worry about their exposure to the elements. They are sealed connectors, and they will not absorb water inside. Now it's just a matter of positioning this properly. The system does come with 2 wire ties like this. I typically use only one unless the situation really calls for more. We do have a designed-in channel in the body of this modulator that accepts the wire tie. So anything you tie it off to, as long as it's within this location, this thing will not move around out of that position. So with that in mind, let's pick the appropriate position. We do have a rubber grommet here that the wires penetrate out of. If it's upside down like this, water can accumulate on the wires and still probably seep inside. So let's err on the safe side and make sure that the grommet is either horizontal or pointed down. Here we are afforded a location around here above the lock where it will be pointed down slightly, so gravity will only draw that water downwards. I will actually opt to put this connector in here in this boot. And since this loom was not tied off to the frame, I'm going to leave it that same way. I am going to tie off our modulator and the wiring underneath it to this frame component here. I'm obviously showing you all the steps necessary for the installation of this part. The programming section is after this section in the video, so I encourage you to watch the entire video, perform the steps necessary for programming, and then perform these steps, because once you perform these steps, it's difficult to get in there without it being cumbersome. All right, this looks good to me. I'm going to make sure that all of my wires can still pass under everything. We are good here. I'm going to snip off the excess. And now for the final steps. Get our tail in. Those interference geometry pegs go into their respective windows. Then we will need to make sure that these tabs go under the black undertail on both sides and line up perfectly with the mounting bosses. Now these plastics get pushed inboard until they click in. And now we'll grab the seat. Trick here, if you've already done this several times, you know this does not want to go into its catch on the tank, so we have to be careful there. Make sure that aligns and goes in first, and then we slide everything in and up. Once again, aligning the tabs from the seat under the red plastic on the outside, making sure that we have access to the actual mounting boss faces underneath, and we'll go to reassembly. Now, before you go ahead and squish this in, make sure that that shoulder washer lines up properly in a concentric fashion through this plastic piece and the tab that protrudes from the seat. This way you actually get this fastener to sit against the frame. Once that happens, you could go ahead and tighten it down. Same thing happens in the rear. To make sure that we're aligned and that the washer is making contact with the frame. And that's it. This installation is complete. For mode selection and rate adjustment, we will need to get inside this capsule to access the electronics. These two Phillips head screws will need to be removed. What I like to do is unscrew them until they disengage from their receiving threads and leave them in the cap. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to lose them. If we pull them off with the cap, they are self-captive. All right, now we'll identify the parts here. This button is the mode selector, and this potentiometer is your rate adjuster. Clockwise is faster, counterclockwise is slower. Let's first do our selection of modes. With the brake pressed, press the button once to toggle to the next available program. Now the brake does have to be pressed so that the unit powers up, otherwise you won't be able to make the selection. If you find that you've pressed the button but the selection has not been changed, just do it again with the brake pressed. So now we will go on to the next program. Press the brake once more, press the button once, and now you're in the next mode. Now we've switched twice, so pressing it one more time will return to the original mode that your unit arrived in. Now for rate adjustment, we'll be using the potentiometer. With the brake pressed, we can turn it clockwise to make it go faster, counterclockwise to decrease the rate. Now in brake alert, you will only have 9 flashes to make your adjustment, and then it'll stay solid. This one doesn't actually lend itself to really fast flashing at the top of the range. Bottom of the range is unusable, so I like to set it somewhere towards 3/4 to maybe 80% clockwise, and that does it for me. Now if we change to the next one, this one is the pulsar, and this one just keeps on flashing, so I like to have it going pretty fast here. Choice is really up to you. If you want to explore the next mode, we have the intermittent pulsar. This one to me belongs somewhere close to the top of the range, makes it the most visible. But again, freedom means choice. The decision is ultimately up to you. Once you're done with your adjustment and you're where you want to be with all your modes and rates, replace the cap, turn the screws back in, and it really is just that simple. Replace your brake light modulator in the space that you decided to keep it, and you're good to go.